Something violent is waking up in Yellowstone. Right now, today, not as a prediction, not as a future warning, as a documented fact. On the morning of July 23, 2024, a piece of the park violently disassembled itself. A plume of boiling water, mud, and rock shot 600 feet into the air. An explosion so powerful it hurled 1,500 individual rocks, some weighing hundreds of pounds, across the landscape, shattering a tourist boardwalk into splinters. That is not a simulation. That is not an artist's rendering. That is the measured, recorded reality of what happened just before 10:00 and in a part of the park called Biscuit Basin. It was an event that put the world on notice. And what you've seen so far? The viral videos of people running for their lives. Barely scratches the surface of what's really going on. We see a lot of comments on these events from people who live near these geological hotspots. Tell us below, what are you hearing on the ground? We read every one. And here's the part that nobody is talking about. That explosion, as terrifying as it was, is not the real story. The real story is a scientific discovery made years ago, a prediction buried in data models that reveals the true nature of the threat sleeping beneath the park. A discovery that proves when the real eruption comes, the devastation will not follow the path anyone expects. It will defy the wind. It will defy the weather. And it will bring a level of destruction to a place that has always believed it was safe. A lot of our viewers say they appreciate the depth of these reports, but forget to subscribe. We are a small team, and the truth is, we have a very low subscription rate. If this kind of information is vital to you, taking 1 second to click that button is the single most important thing you can do to ensure you don't miss the next report. It's an emergency button for information. Please, take that second right now. Let's begin. To understand what Yellowstone is becoming, you first have to understand what it is not. The blast on July 23rd at Black Diamond Pool was not a volcanic eruption. It was something else. Something that, in its own way, may be just as unsettling. Scientists call it a hydrothermal explosion. That is not a comforting euphemism. It is a precise technical term for a genuinely dangerous condition. A condition where the ground beneath your feet can, with almost no warning, turn into a geyser of superheated steam and shrapnel. The United States Geological Survey, the USGS, was on site almost immediately. Their geologists mapped the debris field, they analyzed the ejecta, and what they found told a story. There is no rhyolite bedrock, the signature volcanic rock of Yellowstone's deep magma chamber. Instead, they found sandstone and glacial debris. The evidence was undeniable. The explosion was rooted shallowly, within just 100 feet of the surface. It was not magma rising, it was water. Underground water, superheated by the magma chamber far below, trapped and pressurized until it flashed into steam with unimaginable force. It blew a hole in the ground. It threw 1,500 ballistic rocks toward the nearby Firehole River. It obliterated the boardwalk. But it was not the volcano itself. That distinction is critical. Dr. Michael Poland, the current scientist in charge of the Yellowstone Volcano Observatory, or WIVO, made it clear. There were no detectable volcanic precursors. Ground deformation remained normal. Seismicity, the constant chatter of tiny earthquakes that averages 1,500 to 2,500 events per year, never left its background rhythm. The monster was not stirring, but its plumbing system was coming apart. This is the state of Yellowstone today. A vast, interconnected network of underground channels and reservoirs, a hydrothermal system of pipes and chambers, all simmering at a rolling boil. And the system is becoming more unstable. The 2024 explosion was not an isolated incident. Look at the park's recent history. On May 17, 2009, a similar, smaller hydrothermal blast occurred in the very same area, Biscuit Basin. A warning shot. Then, between February 7th and 24th of 2026, after a 6-year dormancy, Echinus Geyser in the Norris Geyser Basin roared back to life erupting roughly 40 times. Norris is the hottest, most dynamic thermal area in the entire park, a place where the heat from the magma chamber is terrifyingly close to the surface. The reawakening of Echinus was not a random event. It was the system turning another valve. Then, the focus shifted back to Black Diamond Pool. The site of the 2024 explosion never truly went quiet. Throughout 2025, it continued to pulse with activity. But on April 28th and 29th of 2026, sensors recorded back-to-back eruptions. The acoustic and seismic data from the April 29th event showed it was the largest blast from that pool since the summer of 2025. The problem was not going away. It was settling into a new, violent pattern. So, the USGS installed new webcams, pointing them directly at the site to watch the system in real time. They knew they were monitoring a chronic instability, a wound in the earth that refused to heal. These explosions, while destructive, are microscopic compared to what Yellowstone's steam system is capable of. To understand the true scale, you have to look at Mary Bay. It's a feature on the shore of Yellowstone Lake. Except it's not really a bay. It's a crater. The largest known hydrothermal explosion crater on Earth. It spans 1.7 miles across. It was formed thousands of years ago, not by magma, but by a steam blast so colossal it dwarfs anything seen in modern history. The July 2024 explosion was a firecracker. Mary Bay was a tactical nuke, all of it powered by hot water. That is the kind of energy Yellowstone's hydrothermal system can store and release, entirely separate from a full-blown supereruption. It serves as a permanent, chilling reminder. Even if the volcano never awakens, the ground itself remains a loaded weapon. These smaller explosions get a lot of attention, but what are scientists more concerned about in the long term? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective helps shape our future investigations. But the steam is just the symptom. The disease, the ultimate threat, has nothing to do with boiling water. For decades, there was a comforting assumption about a true V8 supereruption at Yellowstone. The kind of event that last happened 640,000 years ago. The kind that ejects over 1,000 cubic kilometers of debris into the atmosphere. The assumption was that the prevailing winds, the powerful jet stream that flows west to east across the United States, would carry the fallout. The ash would blanket the American Midwest, choke the East Coast, and plunge the nation into darkness. It would be a continental catastrophe. But Canada, sitting safely to the north, would be largely spared. That assumption was logical. It was based on every weather map ever drawn. And it was completely, terrifyingly wrong. In 2014, a team of scientists working with the U.S. Geological Survey published a study that fundamentally rewrote the future of a Yellowstone eruption. The paper, released by the American Geophysical Union, was authored by a team including hydrologist Dr. Larry G. Mastin of the Cascades Volcano Observatory and Dr. Jacob Lowenstern, who was then scientist in charge at the WIVO. They used a sophisticated computer model called ASH 3D to simulate the supereruption. And the results were stunning. What they found was that a supereruption of this magnitude does not behave like a normal volcanic eruption. It does not simply inject a column of ash into the jet stream to be carried passively eastward. The sheer force of the blast is so enormous, it creates its own weather system. A system governed by a phenomenon they called the umbrella cloud. Here is what that term actually means. The eruption column blasts straight up through the atmosphere, reaching heights of over 25 miles, deep into the stratosphere. Up there, high above the jet stream, the cloud of ash and gas stops rising and spreads out horizontally, like a vast, flat-topped thunderhead. Or an umbrella. This cloud is so massive, so dense with hot material, that it begins to collapse under its own weight. As it collapses, it expands radially, in every direction, north, south, east, and west. It generates its own powerful winds, completely overpowering the ambient weather patterns of the continent. Dr. Larry G. Mastin described it plainly. In essence, the eruption makes its own winds that can overcome the prevailing westerlies. This wasn't a theory. It explained the geological record. Ash deposits from past Yellowstone eruptions have been found on the west coast, in places they could never have reached if the ash had only followed the jet stream. The umbrella cloud was the missing piece of the puzzle. The model showed this self-generated wind system could drive immense amounts of ash up to 1,500 kilometers. That's over 900 miles upwind against the normal flow of air. The implications of this discovery were staggering. The team ran the Ash-30 model, and the map it produced was a vision of an apocalypse that had been pointed in the wrong direction for decades. Instead of just blowing east, a massive arm of the umbrella cloud surged north, directly into Canada. The model showed that heavy ashfall, not a light dusting, but a thick, destructive blanket, would cover the Canadian prairies, the agricultural heartland of the nation. Southern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan, southern Manitoba. Cities like Calgary and Winnipeg, once thought to be on the safe periphery of the disaster zone, were now shown to be in a direct path of devastation. The safe zone did not exist. If you find this information valuable, please take a moment to share this report. Many people, especially those in the affected regions, are still operating under the old assumptions. Liking the video also tells the algorithm that this is a critical story that needs to be seen. If you share it with friends or family, let us know. To understand what heavy ashfall truly means, you have to understand what volcanic ash actually is. It is not the light, fluffy residue from a campfire. It is pulverized rock and glass. Jagged, microscopic shards that are abrasive, corrosive, and heavy. Volcanic ash is approximately 6 times denser than water. A light dusting can kill crops. A few inches can shut down an entire city. And when mixed with rain, it turns into a concrete-like slurry that gains immense weight. Dr. Michael Poland has warned that even a few tens of centimeters of wet ash could cause weak buildings to buckle. The Ash-3 models showed that, under severe scenarios, parts of southern Alberta and Manitoba could see up to a meter, over 3 feet, of ash accumulation. Not a few centimeters. A meter. Imagine a meter of wet, heavy glass shards blanketing the city of Calgary. The immediate consequences would be absolute. The weight would trigger a cascading structural failure of buildings across the region. Roofs would collapse. Power lines, heavy with ash, would snap. The electrical grid would fail. But the true catastrophe would unfold more slowly. The agricultural backbone of Canada would be systematically dismantled. The vast fields of wheat, canola, and barley that make the prairies the nation's breadbasket would be buried under a sterile layer of volcanic glass. The soil would be poisoned, potentially for decades. Livestock that survived the initial ashfall would face a grim future. Grazing would become impossible. The abrasive ash would shred the internal organs of any animal that ingested it. Their lungs would be destroyed by silicosis, the same disease that affects miners. It would be a mass extinction event for Canadian agriculture. The water supplies would be next. Rivers and lakes would be choked with sediment. Water filtration plants, designed to handle silt and organic matter, would be completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of fine, hard particles. The ash would scour pumps and destroy machinery. Access to clean drinking water would cease. For millions, a simple turn of the tap would deliver nothing but a toxic slurry. Transportation would grind to a halt. Just 1 millimeter of ash is enough to shut down an airport indefinitely. The tiny glass particles can be sucked into jet engines, where they melt and re-solidify on the turbine blades, causing catastrophic engine failure. Roads would become impassable, buried under drifts of ash that behave like heavy abrasive snow. All movement, all commerce, all hope of escape or rescue would stop. This is the future that Dr. Mastin's model revealed. A North American catastrophe, yes, but one with a unique and devastating impact on Canada. A nation that believed itself to be shielded by the wind would find itself directly under the shadow of the umbrella cloud. The United States would face its own unimaginable disaster zone to the east and south. But the north, the direction no one was looking, would be facing an agricultural and infrastructure apocalypse on a scale that is difficult to comprehend. The idea that Canada was safe was not just an assumption, it was a fantasy. And the science had proven it. Now it is crucial to state this clearly. The USGS, the WIVO, and every serious volcanologist in the world will tell you that a supereruption is not imminent. The probability of such an event happening in any given year is estimated to be about 1 in 730,000. It is a low probability, high consequence risk. The monitoring network in Yellowstone is one of the most sophisticated on the planet. The University of Utah seismograph stations, the US, help operate a vast array of sensors. GPS stations measure ground deformation down to the millimeter. Satellites monitor thermal output. Seismometers listen for the slightest hint of magma moving deep underground. And right now, all of those indicators are at normal background levels. The beast is not moving. But, and this is the most important, but in modern geology, the absence of an immediate warning does not negate the reality of the threat. The recent unrest, the escalating hydrothermal activity from 2024 through 2026, is a powerful and constant reminder of the sheer thermal energy boiling just beneath the surface. The system is active. The system is volatile. The connection between the surface and the deep heat engine is undeniable. The steam explosions are proof. I know this is the second time I'm asking, but if you're getting value from this analysis, please hit that subscribe button. We put hundreds of hours into researching these reports. Our subscription rate is shockingly low, and a lot of people just forget. Clicking that button is the one metric that tells the system this information is essential. It's a click for you, but it's a lifeline for our ability to make more of these. Don't let the algorithm bury the warning. The story of Yellowstone is therefore a story of two distinct dangers, living side by side. The first is the present-day threat, the real and documented instability of its massive hydrothermal system. This is the danger that destroyed a boardwalk in 2024 and reawakened a long-dormant geyser in 2026. It is the danger that can, at any moment, produce another localized. Violent steam blast with little to no warning. It turns a visit to a national park into a game of geological Russian roulette. It is a chronic condition, a measure of the park's vibrant, angry metabolism. The second danger is the existential one, the supervolcano itself, the low probability event that would rewrite human history. And for this danger, the narrative has fundamentally changed. The 2014 Ashford model did not predict when the eruption would happen. It predicted what would happen when it does. It gave us a map of a future that was previously invisible. It took the vague, abstract horror of a supereruption and turned it into specific, measurable consequences for specific places. For Calgary, for Winnipeg, for the agricultural heart of an entire nation. It showed that safety is an illusion based on incomplete data. It showed that the forces of nature on this scale do not obey our weather patterns or our expectations. They create their own. The greatest danger from Yellowstone may not be the shaking ground or the rivers of lava. For millions of people, it will be the sky itself turning against them, delivering a payload of abrasive glass against the wind in a direction they were always told was safe. This is the dual reality we now live with. We watch the park surface for the small explosions, the signs of its restless plumbing. We watch the ongoing steam releases from Black Diamond Pool, the pulsing of Echinus Geyser, and we know we are watching a system under immense stress. And we hold the knowledge of what the ultimate eruption would truly mean. A knowledge a handful of scientists gave us, hidden inside a computer model that revealed the terrible geometry of the umbrella cloud. The ground is awake. The models are clear. The alert status at Yellowstone remains green, normal, But the events of the last few years have proven that normal at Yellowstone is a relative term. Normal includes the capacity for sudden, violent explosions. And the scientific models have now shown, with chilling certainty, what the ultimate abnormal event would look like. We've had a lot of people watching and learning, but a majority still haven't subscribed. You've made it this far, which means this topic matters to you. Take one final second and click subscribe. It's the only way to be sure you're among the first to know when we release our next investigation. The question that science has now answered is no longer if a supereruption could cripple North America in an unexpected way. The question